This is your third part of the program. Business Morning, this Tuesday, the 15th of May. Let's bring the inflation story, the breaking news today. Nigeria's inflation, headline inflation declining to 12.48%, 13th consecutive month of decline. Adimo Kwesa is one of the research analysts at Financial Derivatives Company and is live here in the studios in Lagos to talk to us about these numbers and bringing a few other agri production into the conversation within the next 15 minutes. Good morning, it's good to see you.
Good morning,
this is in line with some of the overall consensus that our headline inflation is still tempering.
Yes, it is. I think the pace of decline was even steeper than what we at FDC projected. We projected a 12.7% headline inflation rate
and inflation
for April.
beats FDC.
It did. So this is just a positive development, and it signifies broader continued improvements in our macroeconomic landscape. If you look at the components, 3 out of the 4 major components declined. That is headline, core, and food inflation. They all declined. However, the month-on-month inflation, which is actually, in my opinion, the most critical component, showed an uptick. Previous month-on-month rises have not translated into an uptick in headline inflation because of the high base year level. However, it is most likely that either next month or June inflation, if month-to-month inflation rises again, it will translate into an uptick in headline inflation. Yeah, because base year effects are waning.
Okay, so baseline effect is winning at the level where we are now.
Yes.
So if we continue to see this month-on-month increase, could just pull up together and push the headline CPI to the now.
Yes, indeed. It's too early to make a prediction about May's inflation, but if you look at all the factors that have happened in the last couple of months, we are approaching the Ramadan fasting. Our Muslim brothers and sisters soon start fasting. Already seeing commodities that are usually in high demand during this period. Commodities like beans, like tomatoes, we're already seeing them rise in prices. We are approaching the planting season, which is associated with price increases. Another source of inflationary pressure could be higher transportation costs. I bought diesel for 280 naira per litre just a few days ago. That is ridiculously high compared to this time last year.
We're looking at 190 per litre.
Yes, indeed.
So it's gone above 100.
It has gone above. I think the average in March was 190 naira per litre.
Yes.
So,
today we got the diesel, kerosene, and petrol data from MBS as well. So a lot of heavy figures to pour over.
Let's not forget that the May budget is going to be, the 2018 budget is going to be passed sooner or later. The May 2017 budget ends in May, so the lawmakers have to pass the budget.
Pass the new budget. So we're entering the transition period.
Yes, indeed.
From the budgetary cycle point of view.
Yes.
So this May, June looks like a very critical period.
Yes.
For both for consumers and for those who are in industries for consumer goods, because you're looking at a new budget, you're looking at inflation. Maybe next week the first quarter GDP numbers as well.
That's true. May, June will be critical, and inflation expectations. If inflation is likely going to rise in the coming months, the MPC members, they will be less averse to shift on accommodative stance.
I was just thinking this morning when I saw this, and I said, well, perhaps the time has come for Godwin Emefiele to hand the government a little, to add everybody a few of a haircut in terms of NPR. But holding this conversation looks like perhaps the MPC would say, well, thank you, inflation, we appreciate that, but maybe not yet.
Well, I think May's inflation will be actually very critical. If inflation does increase and the magnitude is very sharp, then I don't think an uptick.
On a month-on-month basis.
Yes.
So the central bank, the MPC, will be watching not just the headline inflation year on year, but the month-on-month.
Yes.
Because that's what actually translates into what folks feel on the street.
Of course, yes, most definitely. So if there's a sharp rise, then there will be no reason, there will be no justification for them to lower rates. Yes. So we have to look out for those numbers.
If we look at our food basket right now and we try to find out who is contributing to these increases, and a bit of that from the MBS and what they put out, bread, cereal, this and that, you think this is still just the basics we talk about every day?
Yes, those commodities, they are sticky downwards. I think we mentioned this a few months ago. We're seeing farmers in the middle belt, they are starting to migrate because of the conflict in that region. So that is definitely affecting output. Second, we're starting to see rain. Rains are starting. But this is why in the infant phase of the rainy season, when rainy season becomes more acute, becomes more heavy, we'll see major food shortages, major occurrences of food shortages. So food prices are currently low, but we won't be surprised if food inflation increases in coming months.
Between May and June.
It's typical in this time of the year, seasonality, yes.
So maybe I should stock up on rice, beans. What else is on this table? You can't stock up on bread and cereal.
You can't.
But you can stock up on oil and fats a little bit.
Yes,
Fish, if you have electricity.
But if you do that, you might end up increasing the demand for that product and
inflation.
Yes.
And that causes inflation.
So you might be the cause of.
So I might be the one. Because I'm just thinking ahead. Maybe if I stock up on of these things ahead of time. But again, scarcity will come. Yes. So we still have issue with our supply, whether it is imported or domestic production.
Yes, that's true. Transportation costs, transporting from the rural areas to the urban areas is getting more expensive for farmers now. Price of diesel, like I said earlier, is going up and up and up. That is feeding into logistics and distribution costs. So this time of the year is typical for food prices to increase. So let's just hope that the increases are sharper than expected. So, yeah.
Very interesting. Part of this was the urban and rural inflation. 12.87%.
Yes, indeed.
In the urban and 12.13% in the rural. That looks a bit the closing on each other.
They are closing. I think we'd have to do some more research on why that is actually
why this is beginning to happen.
I remember this time last year there was a wide gap.
Yes, and I felt like perhaps I should relocate to the rural areas because inflation is bad. Yes. But I have a kind of a job that I'm not sure still suitable for the. Maybe when I retire, I might be thinking of leaving you folks in the urban index and go for the rural index if by then inflation has come down. But from what I can see, it looks like these numbers are closing on each other, and there's not much difference. And if you look at the month and month as well, which is 0.85%.
0.82%.
Yes. So there looks a bit of a convergence here on both urban and rural inflation. When this begin to happen, and I'll throw it at you folks who are research analysts to find out what exactly is going on here.
Would do some research on that.
Because if inflation starts rising steadily at the rural areas and marching with the urban centers, then it looks like we have a bit of a problem knocking on our door.
That's true. Like, we have to, again, look out for that trend again. Where does that trend lead? Would those numbers continue to converge or will they diverge again? Yeah.
Because the numbers, they're looking at it, and you can see the year-on-year for the urban index there. Last year was 13.75% in March. And rural was 13.99%. There's still a gap of almost 1%.
Yes.
And now that seems to be, over a year, that seems now to be closing at 12.89 and 12.13%. And that's where I said, hold on a second. I'm going to ask Adim about this. Maybe he needs to put his team to work to find out why this is beginning to close in on each other.
We would. Unfortunately, I don't have an answer to that question, but
yeah,
next time we would.
Yeah, we'll as well. Let's find out. Yeah. Then let's talk about the states by state. It looks like we have a price to pay for living in Lagos, man. If we put it up, isn't it?
It is. Lagos is becoming more and more expensive from those inflation numbers we can see. And Kebbi, Rivers, Kogi, those are areas.
Yes. Those are states with inflation. And I'm looking at that. Numbers. But food inflation, if you look at food inflation in Lagos, for example, that's 2.49%.
2.49%. That is actually, I think, because I think you can attribute that to maybe this Ramadan period. I think people who are stocking up for goods in preparation for this period. So that could be a factor why food inflation is the highest in Lagos. I think most Lagos is, although I think you can say the Muslim population makes about 40%, 50% of the population. So that's a healthy share of the population. So you can make that reference. That
I also find this out, and I tried to share it earlier, with the state profile of Benue State here, when Benue has the slowest rise in food inflation, for 12.27%, and the month-on-month also a negative 0.56%, despite all the troubles in that state.
That is peculiar, I must say. You think you would attribute that to be the reverse. You think the reverse because of the Boko Haram conflicts and all that, but food inflation is actually low. Maybe
in Benue State.
the demand factor maybe there's not so much demand for food in those areas. So maybe that's why. But that's very odd. That's very odd. I would have assumed that it'd be on the other